Peter Rabbit wriggled his nose, feeling the fresh morning air. He was a mischievous little bunny with a thirst for adventure, always looking for something new to explore. His mother, Mrs. Rabbit, was a kind and sensible soul, always looking out for her children. She had warned her children many times about the dangers of Mr. McGregor's garden, a place full of hidden perils.
"Stay away from that garden," she'd said, her nose twitching with concern. "It's full of dangers and traps."
Peter lived with his sisters, Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, in a cozy burrow. Unlike adventurous Peter, they were good little bunnies who always listened to their mother. They liked helping their mother and never, ever disobeyed her, always staying close to home. Today, Mrs. Rabbit was sending her children to gather blackberries, a task they enjoyed.
"Be good," she called as they hopped away, her voice filled with love and care.
Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail chattered excitedly as they followed the path, their little feet pattering on the ground. Peter, however, lagged behind, lost in his thoughts. He glanced towards Mr. McGregor's garden, the forbidden place that always intrigued him. The gate stood slightly ajar, inviting him in with its mysterious allure, and Peter's sense of adventure began to bubble up inside him, filling him with excitement and curiosity. The garden gate creaked as Peter pushed it open, the sound echoing in the quiet morning air. He snuck inside, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement, his little paws barely making a sound on the soft earth. Rows of delicious-looking vegetables stretched before him, a veritable feast for his eyes. There were cabbages, bigger than his head, their leaves glistening with morning dew. The air was sweet, with the scent of ripe tomatoes and juicy strawberries, making his mouth water. Peter had never seen so many tasty treats in one place, each one more tempting than the last. He nibbled on a crunchy carrot, savoring the forbidden delight, the crunch echoing in his ears. Mr. McGregor's garden was everything Peter had imagined, a paradise of endless food. But a shadow fell over Peter, casting a sudden chill over the warm, sunny garden. He froze, his ears twitching. Mr. McGregor was coming. The sound of footsteps grew louder. Peter scampered behind a watering can, his heart racing, hoping he wouldn't be seen. He had to get out of there. With a burst of speed, he darted towards the gate, his tiny heart pounding in his chest. Mr. McGregor grumbled to himself as he tended his lettuces. Peter saw his chance. He darted out from behind the watering can and made a dash for the fence, but Mr. McGregor had spotted him.
"Get out of my garden, you pesky rabbit!" Mr. McGregor yelled, waving his rake.
Peter zigged and zagged through the vegetable patch, his little legs pumping furiously. Mr. McGregor was hot on his tail. Peter squeezed under a fence post just as Mr. McGregor swiped at him with the rake. That was too close. Peter raced across the garden, fear lending speed to his paws. He could hear Mr. McGregor's footsteps pounding behind him. Peter's breath came in ragged gasps. He had to find a way out.
He spotted a hole in the hedge. With a burst of energy, Peter leapt through the opening and tumbled onto the soft grass outside. He lay there for a moment, his chest heaving. He was safe.
Relief washed over Peter, followed by a wave of exhaustion. He had escaped Mr. McGregor's clutches, but it had been a very close call. He knew he had been foolish to disobey his mother. With tired limbs, Peter made his way back to the blackberry patch where he had left his sisters. They were just finishing up their collecting when Peter arrived, looking worse for wear.
"Peter, where have you been?" cried Flopsy. "You look awful."
I went on an adventure," Peter mumbled, avoiding their eyes. He felt ashamed of himself for worrying his sisters. He knew he needed to go home and apologize to his mother. Peter trudged back to the burrow, his head hung low, his little paws dragging in the dirt. He knew his mother would be angry with him for disobeying her. And she was, her eyes filled with a mix of worry and frustration. But she was also relieved to see him safe and sound, her heart swelling with love as she hugged him tightly.
"Oh, Peter," she sighed, ushering him inside, her voice trembling with emotion. "You must never go into Mr. McGregor's garden again. It's far too dangerous, and I couldn't bear to lose you."
Peter snuggled close to his mother, feeling remorseful and understanding the gravity of his actions. He knew she was right. The garden was a perilous place, filled with unseen threats. He had been lucky to escape unharmed, and he vowed to be more careful in the future. As he drifted off to sleep, he realized that sometimes adventures were best left unimagined and safety was more important. From that day forward, Peter Rabbit never again went near Mr. McGregor's garden, always remembering his mother's words. He had learned his lesson the hard way, and the memory of his narrow escape stayed with him. And while he would always be an adventurous bunny at heart, he also knew that there was no place as safe and loving as home, where he was cherished and protected.